You have tried supplements before, bottles accumulated in your cabinet, purchased with optimism after reading compelling claims, consumed for a few weeks, then abandoned when nothing seemed to change. You have become skeptical of the entire category. Too many promises, too little delivery. The expensive multivitamins that produced expensive urine, the trendy compounds that came and went with fashion cycles, the powders and capsules that required faith more than evidence. So when someone mentions another supplement, another molecule with another acronym, your instinct is to dismiss it. You have been disappointed too many times. You have spent too much money on too little benefit. You assume that anything truly effective would be a pharmaceutical, not a supplement. That the real medicine happens in hospitals while health food stores sell hope in bottles. But what if I told you there is a compound that hospitals actually do use? One that emergency rooms stock for critical care situations? One that has decades of clinical research behind it? One that addresses fundamental cellular processes in ways that produce measurable, documented effects? What if this compound is available as an inexpensive supplement, accessible to anyone, capable of producing meaningful changes in how you feel and function over the course of a single month? This is N-Acetyl Cysteine, usually abbreviated NAC. It is not new, it is not trendy. It does not have a marketing team or celebrity endorsements. It has been studied extensively since the 1960s and used clinically for specific medical purposes for decades. What has changed is our understanding of its broader applications, our recognition that the same mechanisms that make it life-saving in emergency settings make it supportive of health in everyday life. Let me explain what NAC actually is, how it works in your body, what happens when you take it consistently for 30 days, and why this particular supplement stands apart from the crowded field of products that promise everything and deliver little. NAC is a modified form of cysteine, one of the amino acids that serve as building blocks for proteins. Cysteine itself is conditionally essential, meaning your body can produce some of it, but may not produce enough under certain circumstances. The modification, the N-acetyl group attached to the cysteine molecule, dramatically improves how the compound behaves when you consume it. It becomes more stable, more bioavailable, more capable of reaching the cells that need it. The reason cysteine matters so much has to do with what it enables your cells to produce: glutathione. If you have heard of glutathione, you have probably heard it called the master antioxidant. This description, while somewhat simplified, captures something important. Glutathione is the primary antioxidant that operates inside your cells, in the very compartments where energy is produced and where oxidative damage is most likely to occur. You're probably familiar with antioxidants from food. Vitamin C, vitamin E, the colourful polyphenols in berries and vegetables. These are important compounds that neutralize free radicals in various compartments of your body. But the antioxidants you eat from food operate primarily outside cells, in your bloodstream and in the spaces between cells. They contribute to health, but they do not directly address what happens inside the cell itself. Inside the cell is where the most critical antioxidant work occurs. Your mitochondria, the energy-producing structures within each cell, generate enormous amounts of reactive oxygen species as a byproduct of making energy. This is unavoidable chemistry. The same processes that keep you alive generate molecules that can damage the cellular machinery. Glutathione is the primary defense system that neutralizes these reactive species before they cause harm. It operates where external antioxidants cannot reach. The production of glutathione requires 3 amino acids: glutamate, glycine, and cysteine. Your body has adequate supplies of glutamate and glycine most of the time. Cysteine is typically the limiting factor. The availability of cysteine determines how much glutathione your cells can produce. If cysteine is scarce, glutathione production is constrained regardless of how much glutamate and glycine are available. This is where NAC becomes valuable. By providing a stable, bioavailable form of cysteine that can efficiently reach your cells, NAC removes the limitation on glutathione production. Your cells can produce more of this critical antioxidant. The protective capacity inside your cells increases. The balance between oxidative damage and antioxidant defense shifts toward protection. The clinical history of NAC demonstrates its potency. In hospitals, NAC has been used for decades in 2 primary applications. First, it serves as a mucolytic agent, meaning it breaks down mucus. Patients with respiratory conditions that produce thick, difficult-to-clear secretions benefit from NAC's ability to dissolve the disulfide bonds that make mucus viscous. This application led to NAC being used in inhalers and as an oral medication for conditions like chronic bronchitis. Second, and more dramatically, NAC is the standard emergency treatment for acetaminophen overdose. Acetaminophen, the active ingredient in Tylenol and many other over-the-counter pain medications, is processed by the liver through pathways that can produce toxic metabolites. When someone takes too much acetaminophen, these metabolites accumulate and can cause severe liver damage or death. NAC, administered intravenously in high doses, provides the cysteine needed for massive glutathione production, allowing the liver to neutralize the toxic compounds before they cause irreversible damage. This emergency application reveals something important about NAC's mechanism. It works through genuine cellular protection, providing raw materials for the body's own detoxification systems. It is not a drug that blocks receptors or alters pathways artificially. It is a precursor that enables the body to do more of what it already does. This is a fundamentally different category of intervention than most pharmaceuticals represent. The doses used in emergency settings are high, often thousands of milligrams administered over hours or days. These doses are appropriate for acute crises but are not what anyone would use for everyday support. Long-term supplementation operates at a different level, providing steady, moderate amounts that maintain glutathione production without overwhelming the system. His distinction between acute high-dose use and chronic moderate dose use is crucial for understanding how to think about NAC supplementation. The same compound that saves lives in emergency rooms can support cellular health in daily life, but the approach must be different. Chronic use should be moderate, just enough to ensure adequate cysteine availability without disturbing the delicate balance your body maintains. That balance, called redox balance, deserves explanation because it affects how you should think about antioxidants generally. Your body does not simply want to eliminate all oxidation. Oxidation serves essential purposes. It is how your immune system destroys pathogens. It is part of how cells signal to each other. It is involved in the adaptation response to exercise that makes you stronger. A body that completely eliminated oxidative stress would be a body that could not function. What your body wants is balance. Enough oxidation for necessary functions, enough antioxidant capacity to prevent excessive damage. The relationship between these forces should be dynamic, shifting as circumstances require. During infection, more oxidation helps fight pathogens. During recovery, more antioxidant activity helps repair damage. The system should be responsive, not fixed at either extreme. Flooding your body with massive doses of antioxidants can actually interfere with beneficial oxidative processes. Some research suggests that very high-dose antioxidant supplementation can blunt the adaptive response to exercise, preventing some of the benefits that physical activity should provide. The oxidative stress from exercise is part of the signal that tells your body to get stronger. Eliminate that signal, and you eliminate part of the adaptation. This is why chronic NAC supplementation should be moderate rather than aggressive. You want to support glutathione production without overwhelming your body's natural regulatory mechanisms. You want to ensure adequate capacity without disrupting the signals that oxidation normally provides. A modest daily dose, perhaps around 100 milligrams for ongoing use, provides steady support without the potential downsides of excessive antioxidant loading. The challenge with obtaining adequate cysteine from food alone relates to how your body prioritizes its use. When you eat protein-containing foods, the amino acids are absorbed and distributed according to priorities established by millions of years of evolution. Cysteine gets used for multiple purposes. It contributes to protein synthesis, the building of enzymes and structural proteins throughout the body. It helps repair the intestinal lining, which is constantly being renewed. It participates in various metabolic reactions. What remains after these uses is what becomes available for glutathione synthesis. Often this remainder is insufficient, particularly when demands are high. The body converts cysteine to cysteine, a doubled form that is more stable for transport but less immediately available for glutathione production. By the time cysteine reaches the cells that need to make glutathione, much of what was consumed has been diverted to other purposes. NAC supplementation bypasses these limitations. Because NAC is efficiently absorbed and transported, it delivers cysteine more directly to the cells that need it for glutathione synthesis. You're not competing with other uses for dietary protein. You're providing targeted support for a specific biochemical pathway. Modern life increases the demand for glutathione in ways our ancestors never experienced. Environmental toxins that did not exist for most of human history now permeate the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat. Heavy metals accumulate in tissues. Pesticides challenge liver detoxification systems. Industrial chemicals appear in products throughout our homes and workplaces. The glutathione system, which evolved to handle natural exposures, now faces synthetic challenges that exceed its baseline capacity. Stress adds to the burden. Psychological stress increases oxidative stress in cells. Chronic stress depletes glutathione reserves that then become unavailable for other protective functions. Sleep deprivation, another feature of modern life, impairs the restoration processes that should replenish glutathione during rest. Poor gut health compromises the absorption of nutrients needed for glutathione synthesis, while simultaneously increasing the inflammatory burden that depletes glutathione. The sum of these modern pressures creates a situation where dietary sources of cysteine, even in an otherwise good diet, may not provide what the glutathione system requires. Supplementation becomes not a luxury but a practical response to circumstances that differ substantially from those under which human physiology evolved. There is another layer to glutathione production that affects a significant portion of the population: methylation. This term describes the transfer of methyl groups, small chemical units consisting of 1 carbon and 3 hydrogen atoms that regulate countless processes throughout the body. Methylation affects gene expression, neurotransmitter production, detoxification pathways, and the recycling of glutathione itself. Genetic variations affect methylation capacity significantly. The gene MTHFR, which provides instructions for a key enzyme in folate metabolism, has common variants that reduce methylation efficiency. Depending on which studies you examine and which populations you consider, somewhere between 40 and 60% of people carry variants that impair their methylation capacity to some degree. These individuals produce less of the active folate needed for methylation reactions, affecting everything downstream from that point. When methylation is impaired, homocysteine tends to accumulate. Homocysteine is a compound that should be recycled through methylation pathways. When those pathways function well, homocysteine is efficiently converted to other useful compounds. When methylation is impaired, homocysteine builds up. Elevated homocysteine is associated with increased cardiovascular risk, increased inflammation, and impaired tissue repair. It is not merely a marker, but appears to contribute causally to damage. The glutathione cycle depends on methylation for regeneration. Glutathione is used up when it neutralizes reactive species. It must be recycled to continue functioning. Methylation reactions are part of this recycling process. When methylation is impaired, glutathione recycling becomes less efficient. You can produce glutathione, but you cannot maintain it as effectively. The protective capacity diminishes more quickly than it should. For individuals with impaired methylation, supporting the methylation pathways alongside NAC supplementation produces better results than NAC alone. This might involve adequate B12 in methylated form, adequate folate in methylated form, adequate B6 to support the transsulfuration pathway. The combined support addresses multiple bottlenecks simultaneously, allowing the glutathione system to function as it should. Personalized supplementation means recognizing that your optimal approach may differ from someone else's. Genetic testing can reveal methylation variants. Homocysteine levels can be checked through standard blood work. Someone with strong methylation capacity and low homocysteine may do well with NAC alone. Someone with impaired methylation and elevated homocysteine may need comprehensive support that addresses multiple aspects of the pathway. Now let me describe what actually happens when you take NAC consistently for 30 days. The observable changes that users report and that research has documented. The first domain where many people notice effects is detoxification and liver function. The liver is glutathione's primary staging ground, where this antioxidant is most concentrated and most active. Supporting glutathione production supports liver function directly. People who start NAC often report improved tolerance for foods or substances that previously seemed to bother them. The sluggishness that might have followed alcohol consumption may decrease. The malaise that accompanied exposure to environmental triggers may lessen. The liver is doing its job more effectively and the body feels it. This is particularly noticeable for people whose livers have been burdened. Whether from medication use, environmental exposure, dietary indiscretions, or the accumulated effects of years of modern living, Many people's livers are working harder than they should to process substances the body needs to eliminate. NAC provides support that lightens this burden. The improvement is not dramatic like curing a disease. It is subtle like removing a weight you had grown accustomed to carrying. At the cellular level, reduced oxidative stress allows mitochondria to function more efficiently. Mitochondria are where your energy is produced, where the food you eat and the oxygen you breathe are combined to generate the fuel your cells need. When oxidative damage accumulates in mitochondria, energy production becomes less efficient. You feel tired despite adequate sleep. You lack the stamina you once had. Your recovery from exertion takes longer than it should. As NAC supports glutathione production and reduces intracellular oxidative stress, mitochondrial function can improve. Energy production becomes more efficient. The subjective experience is often described as improved energy, better stamina, more consistent vitality throughout the day. This is not a stimulant effect like caffeine provides. It is not borrowing energy from the future or masking fatigue. It is genuine improvement in the efficiency of cellular energy production. Neurological effects emerge as brain cells receive the same protection as cells elsewhere in the body. The brain is particularly vulnerable to oxidative stress because it consumes enormous amounts of oxygen and generates correspondingly large amounts of reactive species. Brain tissue is rich in fats that are susceptible to oxidative damage. The blood-brain barrier, while protective, can limit the delivery of some protective compounds. NAC crosses the blood-brain barrier effectively and supports glutathione production in brain tissue. This has implications for neurotransmitter regulation. Glutamate, the primary excitatory neurotransmitter, must be carefully regulated to prevent excessive neural activation. Glutathione and related compounds participate in this regulation. When glutathione is adequate, glutamate signaling is better controlled. The brain functions more smoothly. People taking NAC often report improved mental clarity, reduced brain fog, better focus. These effects may relate to improved glutamate regulation, reduced oxidative stress in neural tissue, or both. Research has examined NAC for various neurological and psychiatric applications, from obsessive-compulsive disorder to addiction to depression. While this research continues and conclusions remain tentative, the consistent theme is that supporting glutathione in the brain affects neurological function in measurable ways. Stress resilience improves through multiple mechanisms. The physiological stress response involves cortisol release, immune modulation, and changes in energy allocation. All of these processes generate oxidative stress as a byproduct. Chronic stress means chronic oxidative burden. Glutathione is depleted more rapidly than it can be replenished. The body's resilience diminishes. By supporting glutathione replenishment, NAC helps maintain the reserves that chronic stress depletes. You do not become immune to stress. You do not avoid the cortisol response or the sympathetic activation that stress triggers, but your cells are better equipped to handle the oxidative consequences. Recovery from stressful episodes is faster. The cumulative damage from ongoing stress is reduced. People under chronic stress who start NAC often report feeling more capable of handling their circumstances. Not that the circumstances have changed, but that their capacity to cope has expanded. This is physiological resilience, the ability of cells and tissues to withstand and recover from challenges. Exercise recovery relates to the same mechanisms. Physical activity generates oxidative stress as muscles work hard and consume oxygen rapidly. This stress is part of the adaptation signal that makes you stronger, but it must be balanced by adequate recovery. When antioxidant capacity is insufficient, recovery is delayed. Soreness persists longer than it should. Performance plateaus or declines despite continued training. Moderate NAC supplementation supports recovery without eliminating the beneficial stress signal from exercise. You get the adaptation benefits while experiencing faster return to baseline. The inflammation that follows intense exercise resolves more efficiently. You can train more consistently because you are recovering more completely between sessions. Barrier functions throughout the body benefit from glutathione support. Your body maintains barriers between itself and the external environment in multiple locations. The skin is the most obvious barrier, but the lining of your digestive tract, your respiratory system, and other mucosal surfaces all serve similar protective functions. These barriers require constant maintenance and repair. The cells that form barrier tissues turn over rapidly. New cells must be produced continuously to replace those that are shed or damaged. This production requires adequate cellular resources, including the protection that glutathione provides. When glutathione is insufficient, barrier cells may be more vulnerable to damage, slower to replicate, less effective at their protective function. Supporting glutathione through NAC supplementation supports barrier health throughout the body. In the respiratory tract, this contributes to the mucolytic effects that made NAC valuable for respiratory conditions. Mucus becomes less viscous and is cleared more easily. But beyond mucus, the actual cells lining the airways are better protected and maintained. In the digestive tract, improved barrier function can manifest as better tolerance for a variety of foods. The intestinal lining, constantly exposed to whatever you eat, benefits from adequate glutathione. People who previously experienced sensitivity to certain foods may find that tolerance improves. Digestive discomfort may lessen. The gut as a whole functions more smoothly. Mucosal health improvements often include changes in nasal and sinus congestion. The same principles that apply to airway mucus apply to the nasal passages. People prone to chronic congestion sometimes notice clearer breathing. The excessive mucus that accumulated and caused discomfort is broken down and cleared more efficiently. Skin health can improve as the body's largest organ receives better support for its cellular functions. Skin cells, like all cells, benefit from adequate glutathione. The antioxidant protection supports cell turnover, wound healing, and resistance to environmental damage from sun exposure and pollution. People sometimes notice that their skin looks clearer or healthier after consistent NAC use. This makes sense given the compound's effects on cellular protection throughout the body. Immune function benefits from glutathione support through multiple pathways. Immune cells require glutathione for their own function and protection. They also use oxidative processes to kill pathogens, which must be balanced against the need to protect the immune cells themselves. Adequate glutathione supports this balance. Immune cells function more effectively while maintaining their own integrity. People taking NAC sometimes report fewer infections or faster recovery from illness. This is difficult to quantify in individual experience but makes sense given the mechanisms involved. Immune cells that are well supported by glutathione can respond more effectively to threats. The body's defences operate close to their optimal capacity. Practical considerations for NAC supplementation include a distinctive characteristic of the compound itself. NAC has a sulfur-containing molecular structure, and active NAC typically has a noticeable sulfur smell. If your NAC supplement has no smell at all, it may have degraded or may not be what the label claims. The smell is not pleasant, but its presence is actually reassuring. It indicates that the compound is intact and active. The timing of NAC supplementation is relatively flexible. Some people take it in the morning, some with meals, some at night. There is no strong evidence that timing dramatically affects efficacy. Consistency matters more than timing. Taking it at the same time each day helps establish a routine that supports adherence. Starting with a lower dose and increasing gradually allows you to observe how your body responds. Some people experience mild digestive effects initially as the body adjusts. Starting lower and building up reduces the likelihood of uncomfortable adjustment symptoms. Most people tolerate NAC well, but individual responses vary. Combining NAC with methylation support, as discussed earlier, may be valuable for individuals with impaired methylation capacity. This could include methylated B vitamins, particularly methylfolate and methylcobalamin. Some supplement formulations combine NAC with methylation cofactors specifically for this synergistic purpose. The cost of NAC supplementation is modest compared to many supplements. Because it is a simple compound that has been manufactured for decades, there is no premium pricing based on novelty or exclusivity. A month's supply is inexpensive enough that cost should not be a barrier for most people interested in trying it. Safety considerations for NAC are generally favourable. It has been used clinically for decades with a strong safety record. Most people tolerate it well at supplemental doses. The main cautions involve people taking nitroglycerin for whom NAC can amplify effects, and people with bleeding disorders, for whom NAC's anticoagulant properties require consideration. Anyone with serious health conditions or taking medications should discuss NAC with their healthcare provider, as with any supplement. Let me describe the cumulative experience of 30 days of NAC supplementation as typically reported by users. The first week often involves subtle changes, perhaps a sense of improved energy or mental clarity, perhaps better digestion, or easier breathing. These early changes may be noticeable or may be too subtle to attribute confidently to the supplement. The body is adjusting, glutathione production is increasing, but the effects are just beginning to accumulate. By the second week, patterns become clearer. The improvements noticed in week 1, if present, tend to become more consistent and recognizable. People often describe feeling more stable in their energy throughout the day. The afternoon slump that had become routine may lessen. Sleep quality sometimes improves as the body's overall function stabilizes. The third week often brings recognition that something has genuinely changed. The improvements are no longer questionable or attributable to placebo. People can feel the difference when they compare their current state to how they felt before starting. Energy is better, mental clarity is sharper, digestion is smoother, recovery from exertion is faster. The specific manifestations vary by individual, but the theme of improved function is consistent. By the fourth week, the new state has become the new normal. The benefits are integrated into daily experience. People have adjusted their expectations to match their improved capacity. They can do more, handle more, recover faster. They have more margin for error in their diet and lifestyle because their cellular protection is stronger. Some people who stop NAC after establishing this new baseline notice the return of issues that had faded. The brain fog creeps back, the fatigue returns, the digestive sensitivity reappears. This is not withdrawal in any concerning sense. It is simply the removal of support that was making a real difference. The body's baseline without NAC supplementation remains as it was. The improvements required the support to maintain. For many people, this experience leads to long-term NAC use. Having felt the difference, having experienced what adequate glutathione support provides, they choose to continue. The cost is minimal, the side effects are negligible, the benefits are real and valued. Why would you stop something that works? Others use NAC cyclically, taking it during periods of increased stress or exposure and stopping during periods of lower demand. This approach can work, particularly for people whose baseline function is good and who only need additional support under certain circumstances. The flexibility of supplementation allows for personalized approaches that match individual needs and preferences. The scientific understanding of NAC continues to evolve. Research explores applications in mental health, addiction, respiratory disease, cardiovascular health, and more. Not all of this research will lead to established applications. Some findings will be confirmed while others are refined or contradicted. But the fundamental mechanism supporting glutathione production and thereby supporting cellular protection is well established and is not going to be overturned. Whatever specific applications emerge or fail to emerge, NAC's basic function is understood and validated. This stands in contrast to many supplements that are marketed based on preliminary research or traditional use, without clear mechanistic understanding. NAC works through known biochemical pathways. Its effects are traceable step by step from consumption to cellular impact. The uncertainty is not about whether it does what it claims to do. The uncertainty is about the full range of conditions and circumstances where these effects translate into meaningful clinical or subjective benefits. What I can tell you with confidence is that glutathione is genuinely important, that cysteine availability genuinely limits glutathione production, that NAC genuinely provides cysteine efficiently, and that increased glutathione genuinely affects cellular protection. Each step in this chain is well documented. The conclusions follow from established biochemistry. The question is whether you, specifically, will notice benefits from improved glutathione status. This depends on factors unique to you: your current dietary intake of cysteine-containing foods, your current glutathione status, your exposure to oxidative stressors, your methylation capacity, your overall health status. Some people notice dramatic improvements because their baseline was substantially impaired. Others notice more modest improvements because their baseline was already reasonable. A few notice little because their glutathione system was already adequate. The only way to know which category you fall into is to try. The investment is small, the risk is minimal, the potential benefit is substantial for many people. 30 days is enough time to observe whether NAC affects you in meaningful ways. If it does, you have discovered a valuable tool for supporting your health. If it does not, you have learned something about your physiology that is useful in itself. I encourage you to approach this as an experiment with yourself as the subject. Pay attention to how you feel before starting. Note your energy levels, mental clarity, digestive function, respiratory comfort, exercise recovery. Then take NAC consistently for 30 days while continuing to observe. At the end of the month, assess honestly whether anything has changed. The supplements that work are worth continuing. The supplements that do not work should be abandoned regardless of their theoretical promise. Let your actual experience guide your decisions. NAC has the scientific foundation to deserve a trial, but your experience will determine whether it deserves a permanent place in your routine. The cells in your body are working constantly, producing energy, maintaining structures, defending against threats. They need resources to do this work. One of the most critical resources is glutathione, and one of the most effective ways to support glutathione production is through NAC supplementation. For 30 days, give your cells this support. Observe what happens. Let the results speak for themselves. What you may discover is that something as simple as an amino acid derivative, something that costs pennies per day, something without marketing campaigns or celebrity endorsements, can make a real difference in how you feel and function. This is not glamorous medicine. This is not dramatic intervention. This is quiet, fundamental support for processes that matter enormously for your health. 30 days from now, you may look back on starting NAC as a turning point, the moment when you discovered a tool that genuinely helped. Or you may discover that your baseline was already good and additional support was unnecessary. Either outcome represents useful knowledge gained through direct experience. The supplement bottles in your cabinet, the ones you abandoned after nothing changed, may have been failures for good reason. They may have targeted processes that did not need targeting or provided compounds that did not reach where they needed to go. NAC is different. The target is real, the delivery is effective, the mechanism is understood, the clinical history is extensive. This is one supplement that deserves your attention. Give it 30 days. See what happens when you support your cells' ability to protect themselves. The answer may change how you think about supplementation entirely.